Welcome to the Mind Solution Podcast with Sara Maude. The Mind Solution Podcast is for leaders like you who are passionate about well-being in the workplace because you understand that a strong, resilient and happy workforce is the key to your organisation's success. The Mind Solution Podcast is here to help you. So join us every week where we'll share with you powerful insights, strategies and know-how to ensure that your people and your organisation are truly thriving from the inside out. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mind Solution Podcast. My name's Sara Maude and the topic I'm diving into today is all about overthinking. Now, I'd love to know what this term overthinking means for you. So perhaps you would consider yourself as an overthinker, somebody that's always in their head. Maybe you find yourself worrying about situations in your life, worrying about things that perhaps haven't even happened yet. Or do you find yourself analysing a situation in an attempt to work something out? Or perhaps you find yourself ruminating, going over and over something that's happened in your day, or perhaps you've been out on a night and the next day you're thinking about everything that you said, everything that you did, you're worrying about what other people think about you. Well, if you resonate with any of this, know that you are not alone. I've worked with thousands of people over the last decade, and many of them would describe themselves as overthinkers, overanalyzers. But with around about 70,000 thoughts a day, we've all got good at thinking. But I wonder if you know that thinking is what is creating your reality. And by reality, I mean your own internal view, your own internal map of the world about what you think is happening. So if we think about something, it's going to create our own internal perceptual reality. A little bit like wearing those virtual reality goggles. All of that thinking is creating that internal reality. Now, whether that's about your health, whether that's about anxiety, money, a situation at work or a relationship, we can only see the situation based on our current level of thinking. And given that 70% there or thereabouts of your thinking is actually repetitive, it's habitual, then that repetitive, habitual, conditioned thinking, that creates a very limited view of reality. Now, you might be listening to this and you might be thinking, well, maybe I just need to stop thinking negatively. Maybe I need to start thinking more positively. But what if there was a better way? What if there was a way that we can experience things differently without trying to stop thinking negatively or stop thinking more positively? And an analogy that I like to share with people is one of a snow globe. So if you've seen a snow globe, and maybe that snow globe has got Santa Claus in the middle, maybe it's got the Eiffel Tower, maybe it's even got pyramids in the middle. But if you see a snow globe and if you pick it up and you give it a good shake, then that snow globe is filled with bits of fake snow and maybe some glitter. But the harder that you shake that snow globe, the more difficult it is to see what's inside the snow globe. And if you try and force a snow globe to settle, you end up shaking it even more. Because the only thing that can allow a snow globe to settle is by putting it down and allowing it to settle on its own accord. So if I was to invite you to just imagine or just get a sense or just picture that your mind is like a snow globe. And every time you get into your head and you start thinking about something, you start thinking about money, you start thinking about your job, your career, a relationship, a situation at work, a situation with your kids, whatever the topic is, every time that you start thinking about something, what you're actually doing is you're shaking your own inner snow globe. And the more that you think about the subject, the more that snow globe gets shaken up. And especially when that thinking turns into overthinking, turns into rumination, turns into analysing, then you end up with pretty much a blizzard in your head. And often we believe that thinking about something is going to give us an answer. So we think that if we're thinking about a situation, we're going to find the answer that we're looking for. We think that going around and around in our head, thinking about a situation, that we're doing something to try and solve the situation. Or that by thinking about something, we'll find clarity on the situation. And I hear people say this all the time, I'm going to have to go away and think about this. But in truth, the more that we think about something, the more that we can end up stressing ourselves up, the more that we can create mayhem in the mind. Because all that we end up doing is thinking about our thinking. And the more that you think thoughts, the more that those thoughts are going to seem very, very real. But the truth is that the answer that we're looking for, the solution, the insight, the ideas, the clarity, none of that comes from your thinking. Instead, that comes from what I refer to as your innate wisdom. That wisdom and intelligence that you're connected to all the time, that universal intelligence. And that's at the very heart of your inner snow globe. But just like a snow globe, you can't hear or see that innate wisdom when you keep shaking your snow globe. So how do we start to settle the snow globe? How do we start to calm down the mind, calm down our thinking? Well, the first step I would suggest is being aware that you've picked up that snow globe in the first place. Is that awareness that you've got caught up in your head, that you're following a train of thought that really isn't serving any purpose. In fact, that train of thought's taking you to all kinds of destinations that actually you don't want to go to. And that destination could be guilt, it could be fear, it could be shame, it could be insecurity, it could be any number of places. But the more that you follow that train of thought, the more likely it is that you're going to land in a destination that you don't want to be in. So the absolute first step is having that awareness of when you've shaken that inner snow globe, you've got lost in your thinking. And to know that everything that you're experiencing every time that you shake that snow globe isn't coming from the outside world. It's not coming from the situations or the events that are unfolding in your life. That everything that you're feeling, whether it's upset, pain, worry, fear, stress, anxiety, guilt, insecurity, all of that is a product of shaking that inner snow globe. Because what you think creates what you feel. But what happens is that when we start to think about something, we think that we're thinking about the situation. We think that the situation that we're faced with, the situation that we're in, is the cause of that unrest, is the cause of that insecurity, of that pain. But that's absolutely not true. Nothing in your external environment can create what it is that you're feeling. It's just that our thoughts, they seem very real to us. They create that internal reality. And thanks to our consciousness, those thoughts, they seem very real. We believe those thoughts. So understanding that nothing in the outside world, nothing in your external environment can make you feel anything. That absolute understanding that our feelings are created as a result of our thinking. And if you're thinking a lot of thoughts, if you're thinking a lot of insecure thoughts, guess what? You're going to feel insecure. If you're thinking a lot of stressful thoughts, you're going to experience stress. If you're thinking a lot of anxious thoughts, you're going to feel anxious. And those feelings don't know anything about the situation. But those feelings, those sensations that are created from a cascade of chemicals in the body are only being generated based on our thinking. And especially when we're overthinking, we're overanalyzing, we're ruminating, then we start to feel these things. And so it makes them seem even more real. So absolutely creating that awareness that you've shaken your inner snow globe. And to also recognize that, as I said, our thinking creates conditional patterns of thought. That if we're used to thinking in a certain way, if we're used to thinking about particular topics in our life in a certain way, then we're going to create patterns of thought. We're going to create repetitive, conditioned, habitual thoughts. And it's very easy for us to just slip into that old habitual thinking. So recognizing that our experience is often a result of just years of habitual thinking. Now, when I first learned about the snow globe analogy, it made so much sense to me. In fact, I even went online and I bought a snow globe to help remind me that when I'm frustrated or when I'm feeling impatient or when I'm feeling whatever, I'm not seeing reality. All that I'm seeing is what I think is happening because I've shaken that snow globe. In fact, I even bought a blank snow globe where I could put what it is that I wanted into my snow globe. So I got a piece of paper and I wrote the words innate wisdom. And I keep that snow globe on my desk. And every time I look at that snow globe, I'm reminded that everything that I'm really looking for, I have access to. I have access to that innate wisdom, that innate intelligence. And that if I'm thinking about something, that's not going to be where I get my answers from. And, over time, I still find myself shaking that snow globe because I'm human. But I know that I can put that snow globe down. And the more that I see the truth of where my feelings are coming from, the more that I see that when I've shaken the snow globe, when I've fallen into that old habitual conditioned thinking, all I'm really doing is just telling a story about what I think is happening, which is creating a very distorted view of reality. And when I see that, it's like, oh yeah, I see what's happened. I've just shaken my snow globe. And the more that I see that, the more that I just don't go near those thoughts. So I don't need to stop thinking negatively. I don't need to try and struggle to think more positively about something. I just put the snow globe down. I just stop shaking the snow globe, because I know that everything that I'm experiencing is just a result of having climbed into my head and given my mind, that inner snow globe, a really good shake. Now, I used to be very in my head. I would often really try to figure things out from my level of thinking, from my current level of thinking. But all that ever did was just get me tied up in knots and even more frustrated. And I started to see that every time I put the snow globe down, so yeah, of course there were situations in my life that I wanted to have clarity on. There might have been things that I wanted to work out, ideas that I was searching for. But I found that the answers came to me when I wasn't trying from a place of thinking. So if I was just out having a walk, if I was in the shower, bizarrely, some of my best ideas come to me when I'm in the shower. Because when I'm in the shower, I'm not really thinking about anything at all. My snow globe is quiet. And when your snow globe's quiet, that's when we can allow space for that wisdom to drop in. And so many clients tell me over the years that their best ideas, their aha moments, their light bulb moments come from when they're walking the dog, when they're driving the car, when they're out running, when they're doing something that isn't trying to figure something out from their current level of thinking. And when they start to see that, it's such a big light bulb moment. And it's also a big sense of relief, because they realize how much time that they've taken trying to work things out, how much time and also how much energy that they've ended up utilizing, thinking that they need to think about these situations to get the answers that they're looking for. And it's like, oh, I don't need to do that. Actually, the less that I try and think about something, the more that I keep that snow globe calm and settled, the more that I'm going to find what it is that I'm really looking for. And it's okay if we do sometimes find ourselves shaking the snow globe. You know, it's a journey. You know, learning to not shake the snow globe isn't something that necessarily happens overnight. But the more that you create that level of awareness about what's happening, about what's creating your internal state, and not having to justify it, not having to be hard on yourself or beat yourself up, it's just recognizing, okay, I've just done it again, and knowing that you can put that snow globe back down. And the clients and employees that I've shared this with have absolutely loved the snow globe analogy, because they've been able to see that in the past, where they've tried to just stop negative thinking, they've actually inadvertently ended up shaking the snow globe even more. And the more that they've been able to see that what's really creating their experience isn't coming from situations in their life, isn't coming from conditions, isn't coming from the external environment, it's just an experience based on shaking that inner snow globe. It's like, oh, okay, I don't have to fix anything. I don't need to try and reach for positive thinking, and all I need to do is just recognize what's happened. And that can be such a powerful, transformative experience, to know that actually there's nothing to fix here. There's nothing to do here. It's just having that awareness of what's really creating the experience. And the more that you play with this, the more that you experiment with this, the more that you can really see what's going on. So I would love to hear how this has landed for you. I'd love to hear the insights or the realizations that you've experienced as a result of listening to this episode. So do feel free to connect at info@themindsolution.com or drop your comments into the comments box. But for now, thank you for listening and have a truly wonderful day.